Most people who work in rare books spend 20 years before anyone trusts them with something genuinely irreplaceable. And even then, the television cameras never come. Rebecca Romney managed both before she turned 30, and then she walked away from the camera so cleanly that the internet spent years inventing reasons why. None of those reasons were true. The real story is quieter than the rumors, and considerably more interesting. Rebecca Angeline was born in 1985 in Idaho, inside a household where books occupied the position that television holds in most American homes. Her parents were scientists, and reading functioned in that house less like a hobby and more like a daily practice the family took as seriously as other families treat religion or competitive sport. Dinner conversations stretched for hours across subjects like space travel, time theory, and the moral logic of choices made by fictional characters. And what made those conversations unusual was the method her parents brought to them, pulling stories apart systematically, examining why specific characters chose one path over another, and what those choices revealed about human behavior at a deeper level. A child raised inside that environment does not grow up reading passively. That kind of upbringing produces someone trained almost from infancy to look beneath the surface of things, to distrust anything that appears too clean, and to keep asking questions long after most people have accepted the obvious answer. Brigham Young University arrived in 2003, and with it came a set of academic choices that puzzled most people around her. In classical studies and linguistics became her double major, with philosophy and art history added as minors. And while classmates pursued degrees with clear professional destinations, she moved deeper into exactly the kind of learning that offers no obvious exit ramp. By 22, her language profile had become genuinely uncommon even by academic standards, covering fluent English, French, and Japanese, alongside reading competency in Latin, Ancient Greek, and Old English. At the time, it looked like a scholarly achievement with limited practical application, but in a trade where authentication depends on recognizing linguistic patterns across centuries, those same skills became a professional edge that most competitors simply never develop. Graduation in 2007 led directly to Japan. Was Iwe Sintishi de Monmais, where she spent a full year teaching English because she wanted conversational Japanese to become something natural rather than technically correct but slightly stiff. That plan collapsed on arrival back in the United States when she discovered that application deadlines for every relevant graduate program had already closed. No next chapter waiting on the other side. Just Las Vegas, where her family had relocated, and a gap in the calendar that needed to be filled with something that actually paid. And that gap became the hinge point of everything that followed. Bowman Rare Books, a firm established in 1973 with gallery operations already running in New York and Philadelphia, was preparing to open a new location inside the Palazzo Hotel on the Las Vegas Strip, a building that had cost approximately $1.9 billion to construct. Rebecca found the listing while waiting for the next academic cycle and applied carrying no professional experience in book selling whatsoever. Nothing except a degree saturated with dead languages and years of training in pattern recognition and close reading. November 2007, they hired her anyway. She put it plainly later, the work is senses-based and experience-based, and the only real way to learn it is by doing it. What the Las Vegas Gallery delivered next was a crash course that most dealers never receive. Between 2,500 and 3,000 visitors passed through that space every single week, and prices ranged from $50 at the entry level all the way to $500,000 for the most significant pieces. The training model was essentially the old apprenticeship structure, where rapid turnover meant she could examine multiple copies of the same title within weeks of each other. And that kind of repetition sharpens authentication instincts faster than any formal classroom ever could. Within her first 5 years at Bowman, Las Vegas, the gallery sold 4 different Shakespeare First Folios. Only around 230 copies of that collection survive anywhere in the world today, and many experienced dealers retire from the field without handling even one. To understand what that means in market terms, one of those folios sold at auction in 2020 for $9.9 million. Promotion to gallery manager came in 2010, only 3 years after she walked in with no industry background, and she was approximately 24 years old when it happened. 15 to 20 years is the typical climb to that level of professional trust in the rare book trade, and she got there before 25. January 2014 brought a relocation to Bowman's Philadelphia headquarters, where the title became Senior Projects Director, and the staff she oversaw numbered more than 24 specialists, with responsibilities spreading across research, acquisitions, marketing, inventory management, cataloging, sales strategy, and public relations. Rick Harrison of Gold and Silver Pawn Shop had first approached Bowman back in 2011 about sending an expert onto Pawn Stars. The company declined initially, and Harrison kept pushing until they agreed, with the invitation coming from Harrison personally rather than from producers casting a slot. On screen, she stood apart from the first appearance, the only consistent female expert among a rotating group of predominantly male specialists, calm and precise and trained to notice the specific small detail that causes a forgery to fall apart under direct examination. One of her earliest appearances involved Civil War-era documents, including a Confederate bond from 1861, and a forged signature identified within minutes of handling the material. Season 6 delivered the moment many fans still remember, when Chumley purchased a copy of Charles Lindbergh's autobiography for $500 without seeking permission, and Rebecca confirmed the signature was genuine, valued the book at $1,500, and Chumley told her directly that she had probably saved his job. The appraisal that stopped the room cold involved a book printed in 1484, making it older than Columbus's Voyage to the Americas, and books printed before 1501 carry the designation incunabula, placing them among the earliest mass-produced texts in history. Rebecca examined it carefully, then opened it and found the problem. The decorative artwork inside was not from the 15th century but had been added in the late 19th century, and she treated that kind of later addition as a serious integrity failure. Original artwork intact could have pushed the value towards $6,000 or $7,000, but as it sat, she placed it between $3,500 and $4,000, and the shop bought it for $2,500 because the damage to authenticity had already been done. A Mark Twain salesman sample for The Adventures of Tom Sawyer produced one of her more memorable reactions. Because publishers used door-to-door subscription sales when Twain worried the novel might fail commercially, and salesmen carried sample copies that typically got discarded once a customer placed an order, which is exactly why so few survived. Rebecca called it the Holy Grail for Twain collectors, then added that the Library of Congress does not have this exact sample. They settled at $5,500, and she said afterward the price was honestly cheap because collectors would line up fast for something at that scarcity level. A seller who believed he owned one of only 12 Pony Express Bibles brought in something historically valuable, but not quite what he thought. Real Pony Express Bibles carry a specific inscription reading presented by Russell, Majors, and Waddell, and this Bible carried no such inscription, belonging instead to the Overland Mail Company. Stripped of that specific provenance, Rebecca still valued it at $6,000 to $7,000, calling it genuine, rare American West history wearing the wrong badge, and Rick paid $3,000. The Franklin Roosevelt letter from July 1922 carried a price expectation of $15,000, but after Rebecca confirmed the handwriting was genuinely Roosevelt's, she read what the letter actually said: an insurance matter, ordinary and historically inert, with nothing connecting it to politics or any moment the collectors chase. She placed it at approximately $1,500. Rick offered $800. And the gap between what an object is and what people hope it means had never been clearer. Her departure from regular Pawn Stars appearances had nothing to do with conflict or dismissal, and the 2022 reunion confirms it. When Pawn Stars Do America filmed in Washington, Rick Harrison and Corey drove to her shop, and people who cut ties do not fly across the country to film reunions. She relocated to Philadelphia for a serious senior position. The show stayed in Las Vegas, and the two things became incompatible with regular frequency. In 2016, she married J.P. Romney, and in 2017, they published Printer's Error together through a major publisher, a serious work of antiquarian book history built on genuine research rather than television visibility. The Honey and Wax Book Collecting Prize launched that same year, offering a cash award for young women collectors in the United States, after she and a colleague noticed that women were building serious rare book collections while still hesitating to call themselves collectors. Type Punch Matrix followed in 2019, a Washington, D.C. area firm that opened a downtown gallery by 2020 and quickly earned a reputation for serious, ambitious material. The online videos screaming about crime and secret scandal quietly labeled themselves satire in the fine print. The thumbnail promised certainty, while the description slipped in the escape hatch. Her actual career record, laid out across more than 15 years, shows work, moves, projects, and publications that line up in a coherent sequence. Pawn Stars gave her reach. The books gave her the foundation that made the reach mean something. And when her career moved in a direction that made regular television appearances impractical, she let them go without explanation and kept building. Because the rare books had always been the actual point